Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Boro Fan TV and the Monday Night Show with me, James Hutchinson. Joining me on tonight's show are Tony Guest, David Campbell, and making his debut, Jacob Waters. Evening, lads.
Evening, all.
No.
Good luck, Jacob.
Great to see you, boys, and great to see you out there, everybody that's watching. Tonight, we're going to look back at the weekend's game against Reading. Another disappointing result and performance on the road against a side with arguably greater injury problems than ourselves. As well as that game, we're going to look ahead to a massive week with the Boro. We've got Sheffield United rocking up to the Riverside tomorrow. And then at the weekend, we take the trip to Humberside, where it's going to be over 3,000 Boro fans in attendance for another massive game before we hit the second international break of the season. Each
James,
week, I've got to say... Oh, go on,
James,
Tom. Yeah.
Before we start, can we start on a positive tonight? Now, how nice it is to see Leeds United in the bottom three in the Premier League with the same amount of wins as Norwich City, and like you say, Brentford have been promoted now to everyone's favourite second team.
Well, Tony, we've got the welcome mat ready for Leeds United back in the Championship next season, because I'm sure we'll see them at the Riverside. So, yeah,
we certainly will.
I endorse that 100%, mate. I've got to say now, all the Leeds fans will be getting on board because of this, but not to worry. Each week, I'm amazed at the level of interaction we get on the show. We'll do the best we can to get involved and respond to your thoughts tonight. So keep them coming in, Boro fans. And before we start the programme, I just want to say a big well done to Blake. Keep up the good work, son. We're really pleased with you. Get to an away game soon. We're all really proud of you. Well done. So, on to something that wasn't so good, lads. The weekend. David, come to you first. Ready. Neil Warnock, he made 4 changes to the starting lineup. Bowler, McNair returned. But what were your thoughts on the lineup and our shape?
Well, the shape was a bit difficult. I thought it was a 4-3-3, but it was quite interchangeable. Bowler we needed in, because we're very short full-back situation, and Peltier going over there. I was quite happy we went back to a flat back 4, but we just didn't seem to turn up. The first 10 minutes we started quite strong, I thought, and obviously we had the goal disallowed, which was correctly disallowed, but it was good play from Isaiah Jones. But the first 10 minutes I thought we started off strongly, and then as soon as Reading got hold of the midfield battle, they were just picking us apart, and it was just a matter of time before they were scoring. We'd had warning signings beforehand, and McNair coming back in the centre half, he was trying to do man marking, which was leaving Fry quite isolated, which was worrying. And when you've got a junior Hoyler at 33 pulling the strings, as a centre forward, you know that Boro were going to be in for a long, long day.
Yeah. And Tony, one of those players that came in was Martin Piero. It was his first start in a Boro shirt. What did you make of his performance?
It was pretty much non-existent for me, James. Like you say, Howson gets a lot of criticism. He's had a lot of criticism this year, Howson, but he had to give big legs on Saturday. He was pretty much trying to cover all the midfield. Piero came on last week. I can't remember now. We've had that many good irons. I can't remember who beat us last week.
Blackpool.
Blackpool, he came on, and we thought, yeah, here we go. He's going to come in now, and he's going to be this all singing, all dancing South American footballer we've been craving for a long time. But he was poor for me on Saturday, James. But like you said, listening to what ex-pros are saying, it doesn't even look like a Neil Warnock player. So whether there's a bit of turmoil within the dressing room and with Warnock and this new guy, giving all these foreign imports a run out, whether they're fit or not fit, it was just a bit concerning. I don't think it's going to take him a while, isn't it? He's only a young lad, and it's going to take him a while to get up to speed with the Championship. But we should be seeing a bit more than that from what we've seen of him. And on what Dave said there about McNair, I thought he was woeful on Saturday. Like you said, it's not just McNair. I think the majority of I think they're all told to go out and man mark, but he was just getting dragged out of position so many times, McNair, you know what I mean? And I think Warnock blamed Pajero for the first goal for not going with a man. But when you watch it and McNair gets dragged out of the middle, instead of just standing his ground with Dale, they're just passing it round the corner and he's out the game.
Yeah.
Jacob, good to bring you in, mate. Nice for you to join us tonight, pal.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, you're welcome. David Bertram's been in touch, Jacob, and he said our style of play is not suited to this league anymore. We've been found out. Do you put any sort of belief or storage in that thought? Do you think there's some element of truth in that, Jacob?
I'd say what style of play, because if he can work it out, I mean, he needs to tell me. I was just saying to Dave earlier, watching that game, it looked like we were a 4-3-3 at times, but to me, it looked like a 4-4-1-1. I don't know that we actually have a style of play right now. I'm lost for it a bit. I like Dave, actually, when I watched the first 10 minutes, I was thinking, I actually nudged my mate in the pub and I thought, you know what, if we can get Jonesy on the ball here, I think he'll do a bit of damage. But then he's marked out and pushed back. And I don't know. I don't know, because I don't think we have a particular style. When Uch was in, it was a long ball up to him. He was holding it up and I thought that looked quite decent, actually. And I'm not actually a fan of that style of footy, but it did. Now Spora's come in, it has to change because he can't do the same job. So, yeah, I'd say you'd have to tell me the style first.
Yeah, no, I agree. It seems to be like that for the past 10 seasons, doesn't it? That we just bypass our midfield apart from the season we went up under Cranker and Ledbetter and Clayton. We just don't do enough offensively, but we don't help defensively, and we just get cut apart, open through the middle time and time again this season.
Yeah.
David, non-existent. Back four in the midfield's just been absolutely non-existent this season.
Yeah,
I don't think Boro was fully fit. Like Jacob said, the first 10 minutes, if we'd have kept feeding Jones, and maybe as if Boro had been up with a play more and give him another option instead of having to get his head down and take him on all the time, you know what I mean? Just keep possession. But like you say, he's our only supply for goals at the moment. Is Jones, you know what I mean? So, and then he gets criticism off the manager.
Guessy, I feel sorry for our centre back slightly, because every time opposition midfield breaks out of their midfield line, our midfielders don't just follow the markers. So then suddenly you've got 5 or 6 attackers on our 2 centre halves, and they're just getting exposed. I mean, against QPR, Chris Willett was just, he had the freedom of the whole bloody town. There was just no one in midfield tracking him.
Even with 10 men.
Even with 10 men, yeah. I don't know.
I think Johnny Howson gets a little bit more stick than he deserves, actually, because normally I think he's putting a shift in with a makeshift midfield that's so disjointed.
Yeah.
I mean, fair play if they're not Warnock signings, whatever the case, we're left with what we're left with, and that is disjointed.
Do you think it's because they don't want to put a shift in for the manager?
I wouldn't say that, because I think you've got to look at Piero, for example. Big money signing, come over to England, wants to impress. So you'd think he'd put a shift in for himself. JLS, he's come like from a club that he hasn't had much game time. He wants to come and impress. So you'd think regardless, they could be playing for Mr. Bean and they should be putting a shift in. So
well, apparently
I think they're not up to scratch with. I don't know if it's because they're not settled. Well, they're not up to scratch. That's 100%. You look at Saliki. He looks like he's got a good left foot on him. Fair play. Defensively, he's not there, and he can't pass 5 yards at the moment. Piero, like you said, completely agree, Guesty. Just off the pace, he looked like he didn't really offer anything. Like, you wouldn't look at him and go, he's playing terrible, but you'd look and go, where is he? Like, can I find him? He's not really doing that much. And like Warnock said, his comments, I read earlier, he was saying that I don't know his best position, so we're trying him in different things in training. And for me, already, after you've signed him, after you've scouted him, having him in the team, to not know that and let Sam Mosey go, I'm like, well, we've got a bit of an issue.
Yeah. Chris Sykes has just picked up on that there about the Morsey sale, and it's looking more and more of a mistake as the weeks go by. And David, I've got a good point here from Neil Cowan that was at the game on Saturday, and he said, I've never felt so low leaving the ground after a game like that. Same old story, passing the ball sideways and backwards. We're still playing now, we would never have scored. And that's the thing, when you look at what Reading had out in defence, no centre-backs. You had a young lad who was a midfielder playing right-back. Yet we never looked like scoring all game until maybe the final 10 minutes, and 2 shots on goal. Not good enough, is it?
Nah, and they had no Mate, no Lucas Jow, Pukas was on the bench. You know, they were missing some big players, and they made us look really, really average. But like I say, I think that midfield it's struggling to create and it's struggling to offer some solidarity. And unless we get that sorted, it's going to be a long season. You mentioned about passing sideways. We don't get the ball down in midfield. We just bypass it from our centre backs by going long, and then when it comes back, we just don't win the second balls. And then from there, that's where we come disjointed and open. And something I guess in Jacob were saying there, which I believe it's true, is like, is he getting mixed messages, our midfield? There must be something going on, because our midfield is just so non-existent. The work on that, and even if you don't get trained on that, you know your positions, but we're constantly out of position. So is the mixed messages from the coaching staff telling the players where to be?
Possibly.
Like you said, there's some things out of the coaching team's control. Like Jacob said there, Siliki. Warnock's apparently had a word with him yesterday or today about going away on international duty with Cameroon, and he's told him not to go, because he said, you're going to go away, you're going to play 5 or 10 minutes in 2 games. He says, and all the hard work that we've done, trying to get you up to speed, trying to get you fit, is going to go to waste. So that's telling me he's not happy with Saliki's fitness. But what I'm not happy about him, he needs to sit in our dressing room half an hour on his own with all the red shirts hung up around the dressing room, so he knows which colour shirt he's got to pass to. Because that's the 3rd time I've seen him now, and he struggles to work out what colour we're playing in. I'm sorry, you know what I mean? I know he's just arrived.
You like this statistic, right? Out of the last 5 games, we've had 62% pass completion. I worked it out before I came on. That's terrible. Yeah. To give you an idea, the worst in the Premier League is 72, and it's Brentford.
Yeah, because it's not sideways, backwards no more. Which personally, as a fan, if you were going to keep possession and you were working on a team, I don't mind that. I know a lot of fans get frustrated with this, but if you were keeping the ball and you're making the opposition work for the ball, I don't mind it at all. But with us now, it's sideways, backwards. Put the back of the ball out and see how far up you can get it. And if it's not Dale Fry doing it, it's Joe Lumley. And like you say, Dale Fry looks so out of sorts at the moment. That's not the Dale Fry we've all been watching for the last few seasons. The ones that matured under Pulis, and it was starting to look like a really decent centre half. He just looks so sorry. He just looks pissed off. He had another centre half partnership again to contend with on Saturday, along with Paddy McNair. But like you say, Paddy McNair was non-existent on Saturday, and he just left everyone exposed. And like
you know what? Might be a little bit controversial considering his performance, right? But I'd still have
his brother was in Saturday. Absolutely, really got battered.
Go on, you're going to say there, Jacob?
Sorry, I think we might have lagged a bit. I was saying, regardless of how bad he played, I'd still have Paddy in over Hall. I think Hall turns a little bit like, I hope he doesn't watch this, turns a little bit like a house. He can head the ball, brilliant. He can head it. But as soon as something comes in behind him, he hasn't got a chance. He gets beat every time. I mean, I don't know if you play FIFA, but I think his pace is something like 40 odd. So you know by that he's not very fast.
David, I was just going to bring you in on this. Do you think there's anything in this that Paul Nicholas has mentioned here? A lot of the signings have been influenced by Kieran Scott coming to the club, and Warnock's not happy about it. And Warnock's criticising those certain players. And in Paul's opinion, he's lost the dressing room. Do you think there is any mileage in that, David, or you just think it's people putting 2 and 2 together?
You certainly think so because of the results. I can understand where Paul's coming from. And with regards to losing the dressing room, look, we can all speculate on that. There could be some truth in it, and he could be right. But with regard to Warnock signings, personally, I don't think he can really complain about the signings coming in because he was saying out all over the summer how much we needed bodies and in depth. So he's went out and got it regardless of Scott. Now, Scott obviously wasn't at the club when those signings were brought in, but there's nothing to say he didn't contribute, which I think. But with Warnock's man management coming out and slating certain players, he's done that ever since he started his career as Boro manager. So nothing surprises me on that. And if you keep doing that, it's like a normal workplace. If you go to a workplace and your manager's disrespecting you in front of other colleagues, you don't put your maximum effort in. And I think you're starting to see that. Even today, on the conference this morning, there's no need to come out and say about James Silicki not going to Cameroon. Yeah. I think sometimes stuff like that needs to stay in house. And when you start coming out and making excuses, not excuses, but when you're coming out and putting that dirty laundry in public, you're risking a very backlash off the Boro fans unless you're getting results. And I think that's what Warnock's starting to see. He's not getting the results and he's coming out with excuses like that. And it's understandable why the fans are starting to lose patience, in my opinion. And I don't know if you guys agree with that. It's just maybe I'm reading a bit too much into it.
Well, I agree, like you said, he's too long in the tooth there, Dave. He's been doing this for a long time now, so he knows the right things to say. But I can't believe he stood there on Saturday saying that he felt the lads put a shift in. Jacob, James, Dave, do you believe he went in that changing room and said, "Thanks, lads, you give your all today," or do you think he absolutely blasted him?
Well, I would have thought he'd done that after Blackpool and we would have got a reaction, Tony, and we didn't. So I don't know what. I'm with you. I would have liked to have thought he'd done that, but I thought that after Coventry, I thought that at Blackpool, and we're just not seeing no reaction, and that's the biggest concern for me.
Exactly.
That's the concern. Yeah. That's a worry. Like, we got the 3 points at Forest, but it wasn't the more. Look, don't get me wrong, we won. It was a good 3 points, but it still wasn't convincing. Do you know what I mean? And it was one of them Boro wins that, papered over the cracks for me.
Yeah. I was going to come on to this in a minute, lads, but I'll ask you all in turn now. Patrick Wheatley's been in touch, Ian Black as well. If we don't get a couple of positive results this week, Warnock surely has to go. Patrick Wheatley said, Warnock just needs to walk for me before it's too late. I mean, my thinking of it is, lads, is whatever was said after the game about the lads putting in a performance and stuff like that, you can't detract from another stodgy, unpalatable display. Again, we've seen it at Coventry. We saw it at Derby, but we got a point. We saw it again on Saturday, Blackpool at home. Warnock's vowed to persevere with the job, but do you think now he is the man to do that? And can he see this job through? Can he see it through the season? What do you reckon, Jacob?
Ask me after the next game. No, well, I was commenting last week on the show, and I still think it's too early, although I think there's some alarming signs. There's alarming signs. Just what you mentioned there, it's the comments after the game. We put I couldn't ask anything more of the lads. We put a brilliant shift in. And I think every fan's looking at that saying, where's it come? And I'm moving forward, looking at the team. I'm thinking, how do you create something out of this disjointedness that we're seeing at this present moment? So, however, we've got to remember that he is still a bit of a maverick, and you can't deny it. It's not an Aitor Karanka who's had 2 seasons in management. He's different from a Gary Monk. He has been there and done it. So I'm certainly not walking him out the door now. However, I think with another unconvincing display against Sheffield United, if it is, then I think he might only have a couple of games left. But I think within the next few games, he needs to start getting some results. And as I was saying just before we went on, is that it's going to be difficult against Sheffield United. I know we'll probably go on to that, but you're looking at a team that's been unbeaten in 7 games, scored 12 goals in 4 matches. So I'm like that with that. If we lost to Sheffield United and he went, I'd say fair. If we lost to Sheffield United and he stayed, I'd say there's a few more games. That's it.
Yeah, Tony, just bringing in what Paul Nicholas has said there, and at the end of the day, Warnock, I think Boro fans will be eternally grateful for what he did when Jonathan Woodgate left towards the end of the 2019-20 season, because without Warnock's intervention, there's a fair chance we were heading to League One, and for goodness knows how long we would have been there for. But I think the issue now is that in this calendar year, things have taken a bit of a slide and a turn for the worse, and it doesn't, at the minute, seem to be righting itself, does it?
No, I seen a comment earlier on, and I totally agree with the lad with what he said. Because I've been banging on the last 2 weeks about how well we've been doing since January, and the comment was, since Christmas, what's Warnock done since last Christmas? For me, he's done absolutely nothing. We give him yeah, we were all positive, give him the benefit of the doubt when he took the job, said he was going to stay. And like you say, give it the old rhetoric, the old bullshit. I'm going to get all these players in early, this, that, and the other. But that didn't happen. And we end up panicking again last day of the transfer window. I said at the weekend, James, and I think it's right. He's came in, he's done a great job. He's done with us what he done with Rotherham. He kept us up, and for some reason he's decided to, take the carrot that Gibson's dangled in front of him to stay another season. But I think he's took us as far as he can. Like Jacob was saying, we've been discussing there about his comments after the game on Saturday when he said he was disappointed with the sending off because he felt we were starting to get on top. It was a fucking 88th minute. The 88th minute. And he felt we were fucking getting on top. And it's an absolute, it's a piss take. You know what I mean? If he felt we were getting in top and we were the stronger team, we had 2 attempts on goal.
Yeah.
And it's just, he's good to listen to. The press love him. There's a lot of the Boro fans, still want to give him time. Yeah, I don't want the man to get the sack, but it seems it has the feel of what he done to Cardiff. He took him up, you know what I mean, and then things got a bit sticky, and I don't know whether he walked or he got sacked, you know what I mean, but it just seems for me, I feel he's took us as far as he can. Thank you very much. He's kept us up. He's stabilised the club. He's another tight-fisted manager like Pulis, who hasn't spent none of Gibson's money. And like you say, it's time now for the club to start and show some ambition. And I'm not saying get an unproven manager in, but there's a lot of decent managers out of work at the moment.
So you'd have him out now, would you, Guesty?
Pardon there, Jacob?
Would you have him out now then?
Well, Slaven reckons, I don't know where he gets these figures from, but Slaven reckons 14 games before you hit the panic button. But you can't keep doing that, One of them gadgets out the Gazette who do their podcasts during the week so no one can see them because they're absolutely dire, right?
Say it as you see it, Tony.
Well, the crap they come out with, give him 14 games, and what does it matter? Oh, and this guy said, "Look, we're only 5 points off the top 6," but then he said, "But we're only 2 points clear of the relegation place." What?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Dave, do you think
these people who just pay the fans lip service, it really pisses me off because the true fans will watch something like this, and when you listen to them who are still involved with the club, they've got to, watch the P's and Q's, and they're just leading the fans who don't get a chance to go to the match. They're just leading them down the path.
Yeah.
And these people actually believe that we're not doing too bad.
Guesty, the Gazette have been afraid to go against Middlesbrough Football Club for years now, haven't they?
I was just going to say, David, it's part of the problem, what you've mentioned there about maybe Neil Warnock's relationship with the media. And that I've heard in various media outlets and on social media, not so much social media, but in the written press and on TV in the past week about Middlesbrough have been unlucky this season if they'd have taken the chances in the games. And I'm like thinking, well, I've not seen the games that I've been watching because I think 9 points is a pretty fair reflection on where we deserve to be at the minute. I don't know, is that me getting that wrong, David?
100%, James. I mean, the media, all pundits, appreciate Warnock because they'll ask him a question and he'll give them a direct answer and he will fill them with absolute bullshit. When I was watching the Reading match, they were talking about how unlucky we've been in recent games. It's like, you clearly haven't watched the games because we've been battered and all through them. And just touching what Tony was saying a little bit earlier, and Eddie, Gary Monk, when we had Gary Monk as manager, he had a luxury of signings and his media studies were really, really poor. He didn't know how to handle the press. But there is similarities between the two. When we had Monk and we had all these luxury signings, the one point that all the Boro fans were hating under Gary Monk was we had no identity. Now, for me, that can be exactly the same as out Warnock. We all know Warnock's teams are hard to beat, but we literally have no identity. We can't attack, we can't defend, and we get cut open in midfield. And the similarities between the Gary Monk era and the Warnock current era are very alarming to me at this precise moment.
Yeah. Jeffrey Wood's been in touch, Jacob. Thanks for watching, Jeffrey. And he said when Warnock came in, his positivity was great. And I think he was exactly what the club needed at that time. However, as time has gone on, he's turned more and more negative, and he's blaming Warnock for the recruitment. And I don't think that's entirely fair. But do you think maybe Neil Warnock's persona has changed as time's gone on at the club?
Yeah, he passes the buck a lot, doesn't he? He passes the buck a lot. But you know what? Like going on about those signings, Hutchie, he was purring over Piero in pre-season. Yeah. He said they'd been chasing Sporer for a while, like he'd been made aware of him, and he wanted him. I think the only one that might have came from Kieran Scott, if I remember him say it, is JLS. And he got in touch with his French pal and got him on board. And it's got to have been his decision to do that, and then swap him for Morsey, basically. So, like, based on what we were saying earlier, I think Warnock was very much involved with the transfer window. I don't think he's been pressured into any of these. And just like that lad said, I'm getting a bit sick of his rhetoric. Yeah, I think it's repetitive. We've talked about it. It's the same stuff. It's the red cards that are happening, and then he's saying we were on top. No, we weren't. We weren't on top at all. Like, there was very small spells, but we weren't, were we? I mean, 2 shots on target through an entire game. That you're not on top really at any point. And by the way, they'd conceded 18 goals. There's only one team in the championship that conceded more than them. They had the most chances created against them, and then Boro turn up.
Yeah, so, first clean sheet of the season. Yeah, against us, as always.
I agree with him. Yeah, I say he's become more negative. He's very much well, this is what I've got now, so I'll do what I can with it. As if he hasn't got a decent squad, which I think the only area where I'd say, like, so I do think there's a problem in the centre half position. I do, but I think we've got the personnel to sort it out, because you've still got Dale Fry in there, you've still got Paddy in there, and Hall can put a shift in at some points. I think the real problem is, if anything, is the midfield.
Yeah.
But apart from that, you can't really. For example, you've got Hernandez in now. He's already proven he's a good player. Jones is an absolute. He's come onto the scene and he's a bit of a maverick. You've got Sporer, Anush, which I think we've all seen enough, even in the little time of Sporer, to say at the end of the day he will score goals. Yeah, he'll miss a few. That's why he's not in the Premier League, but he will score some. So yeah, I think I'd agree with him. Getting a bit too negative, a bit repetitive.
You know what to say? I feel for us to get the best out of Sporer, I think, Tav's distribution's been absolutely shocking for the last few games. Obviously, he played that lovely ball through to Sporer for him to score at Forest. But I think someone like Conor Malley, I think Sporer would thrive if he had someone like that supplying him, because, like you said before, Neil Maddison said he's the best footballer at our club, and he's still getting nowhere near the starting 11. Going back on Warnock's pre-match and post-match speeches. I listened to the one before the Reading game, and we've been to Reading and been really successful the last 4 seasons. I think, is it 4 unbeaten James till Saturday?
4 wins in a row before Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, but all he wanted to talk about was how much the Reading fans booed him, and it was all about him, how much stick he got when he went down to Reading. You know what I mean? Nothing positive. We've got to. He did speak that we done well there last season and got us up and running, but then it just turned to him about how much the fans hate him. He said, "I always get plenty of stick when I go down to Reading, but I love it." It's not about him. It's not about him trying to be Mourinho, trying to take the pressure off the players. It's just about his ego and how much he gets booed and how many referees he can have a fight with. And it's just getting a bit too long-winded now.
Yeah. But don't you think it's important when you go through a run of performances and results like this, you go back to basics? I mean, we've all played football, and we're so exposed and disjointed. It's embarrassing. But why not go back to basics? Yeah, we're not. Let's not even look about performances. Why don't you go 4-4-2? Keep it simple. Do the basic things and then see if you can build upon them. Maybe he's twinkling around with his formations and personnel a little bit too much. Go 4-4-2, big and little up top, Uche Sporare, and just see what you can do. You know, we have got a team that could play a 4-4-2, even if it's very rigid.
But 4-4-2 smacked you in the face on Saturday. You know what I mean?
I thought it was 4-3 on Saturday.
They had 3 square pegs in a round hole at the back. They had a young goalkeeper in, and we just, you know, we didn't threaten no one. There was absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? Like you say, Jones put that one on a plate for Cruz. Unluckily, the ball had gone out of play. But after that, it just went to dog shit, and there was absolutely nothing. Nothing. Whether it was 4-4-2, 4-3-3, there's just no pattern there whatsoever. Go on, Jacob. Sorry, mate.
Sorry, mate. I was saying what's interesting. Dave thinks it was a 4-3-3. I think it was a 4-4-1-1, and you think it was a 4-4-2.
What do you think the players thought it was?
No, I never said I thought it was a 4-4-2. I said Saturday was a perfect chance to play a 4-4-2 with what they had. You know what I mean? They didn't even have a fit centre half. You know, so you just go out, you go for it. You know, you don't leave Sporer up on his own again, chasing shadows. I think we had a perfect chance there to get at a team, and he bottled it again. Not a cat and nails chance will he play 4-4-2, Dave? Even if he was playing Middlesbrough ladies, he'd still play one up front.
I agree with you, Guesty, completely, but I think you've got to change something completely when you're going through this type of performances and results.
The reporter asked him today, and I think the reporter shit himself because the reporter said, after these defeats, would you change anything? And Warnock said, what do you mean, change anything? Right? He said, do you mean in training? He went, oh yeah. You know what I mean? I think what the kid meant was, would you change anything on a Saturday? And he bottled it.
Well, lads, we'll see what happens tomorrow night when Sheffield United roll into town to take us on. Aside, David, that had a bit of a disappointment, well, to say the least, a disappointing start of the season. No winning 5 games, but they've been unbeaten in the last 5. Is that a reward? And maybe something we should take on board, that they haven't hit the panic button and they've just said, let Jokanovic work things through and now they're reaping the rewards. Is that maybe something we should do?
Yeah, slightly. I think obviously Sheffield United had a big transition in the summer. They went from playing with full backs with their centre backs overlapping their wing backs, which I've never seen in football before. But Wilder executed it something, unbelievably. But now they've gone from that to a flat back 4, and I think that they've had a big transition period. So it did take them a while to adapt. But look, they've got Premier League quality in that. I've watched that Sander Berg, it's a Norwegian, and what a player he is. And it shows you can be a little bit patient. Something what Jacob said a bit earlier, and I agree. I think the transition we had over the summer was big, and I'm not quite there with pushing the panic button just yet. But I can understand it with the international break coming up, and you'd like to think perseverance it'll pay off with us, but it's hard to see at this moment in time.
And Jacob, I mean, Sheffield United, they were strongly fancied at the start of the season. They've just to say started to hit the straps now. Do you think they'll be one of the teams that are at the top come the end of the season?
You'd like to think it with the manager they have. They've got a very good manager, and they've got the personnel, haven't they? So nobody wasn't shocked when they had the start they had. Everybody was thinking you're having a laugh, and I mean, it could have done us a favour and sacked him then. But I mean, you only need to look at you're on about the last 5 league games, but you've also got to chuck in that they drew with Southampton as well in the cup, and there's going to be a lot of confidence now in that team. Billy Sharp started scoring goals. McBurney, I think, got one, and I think they needed the duck off the back at the start of the season. So that's the monkey off the back. Sorry, so that's happened. So I think we're coming up against the side who are up for it now. They're mid-table. They're put, 1 or 2 points off top 6. And there's no chance Jokanovic is in that club to do anything else but getting back in the Premier League. That's it. That's why he's there. And he commands a big salary. If you remember rightly, we were going to get him, but he wanted too much money or something.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, when we got Woodgate, yeah.
Yeah, we got good old Woody.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think they'll be up there. Yeah, I do.
Okay. And Tony, we've spoke about the Reading game and the fallout from that at the weekend. What sort of atmosphere you're anticipating in the Riverside tomorrow night?
The only thing I've agreed with Warnock for the last couple of weeks, we'll get a really good Boro crowd in there tomorrow night, and there'll be 22,000 people or whatever behind him. I've heard no unrest at all where I sit about the way we're playing or the results we've been getting. So I reckon we'll get a really good, positive Riverside again tomorrow night, which is a good thing. You know what I mean? But it's how long that's going to last there, James. Do you know what I mean? Because on the other side of the fence, outside the concourse and outside the walls of the stadium, you know, the Blackpool game, the positivity was absolutely fantastic. Everyone was expecting a 3-0 win. But we've had 2 defeats now since we were last at home. So let's see. Hopefully, if we get the first goal, you know, we'll be all singing and dancing again. But it's if we can keep hold of a lead at home, which we haven't been able to achieve in the last few games.
Yeah. Tony's Pete Robbo and Peter Grasson. Sorry, David.
So I was just saying, you've just got to start strong tomorrow, so that those nerves from the fans don't start creeping in.
Yeah, as Pete Robbo and Peter Grasson have said there, it'll be toxic if Sheffield United take the lead tomorrow night. I don't think we disagree on that, and we hope it doesn't happen. In terms of the lineup, David, do you see or anticipate many changes from Saturday's game at Reading?
Yeah, I think he hit it on the conference this morning. He had that. He's already decided a team, which indicates there will be changes. But I think at the back he's going to be a little bit limited because obviously options. I'll just go to what Jacob said. I think he's trying to get that balance in midfield, and he keeps changing that every week. And I think that's what's costing us. You know, yes, we are getting cut open and we are disjointed, but changing them 3 in midfield or whatever formation in midfield every game, it ain't going to improve. So he needs to get that sorted. And look, I'd happily see the same 3 play in midfield tomorrow that he did on Reading against Reading, even though we got, you know, lost that midfield battle, because he needs to stick with one team.
David,
I can see.
Oh, sorry, Tom. I was going to say.
I can see, like you said, David Kay's just said there. I can see Ichi Pizu and Watmore starting tomorrow night. You know, he's mentioned about these European players, that his words, not mine. You know, the players that came in from abroad, not being fit enough. He said, I need to stop worrying about it. If they're fit, they're fit. If they're not going to play. So I think we'll see most probably Spora and Pajero back on the bench tomorrow night, and back to this good old tried and tested formula, which we seem to start the season well with.
And Jacob, David mentioned there about it's vital that the team get the crowd on board tomorrow night. Now, last time Sheffield United visited the Riverside, they were 3-0 down at half-time. I think we might be asking a bit much for that to happen again tomorrow, but we do need a fast, dynamic start tomorrow night, don't we?
Yeah. Well, I sit in the family stand with my son, and I've got to say that whilst the other parts of the stadium might not sing as much, the South Stand are banging it all the time.
Yeah.
Like even when we go down, the singing, and I can hear that because I'm at the other side of the stadium. So I'd agree that. And at the end of the day, it's what a brilliant club to play for. Look at the facilities. Yeah. Like the facilities we've got, the opportunity the players have got. We're a brilliant club to play for. I love a Palmer. I'm from Teesside, so I'm going to say it. But we are. I think we are. And I think that there should be an element, like Warnock normally brings to a team, of you're playing for the pride of this club. Like you are. Like you said earlier, when me and you were chatting, he's a custodian. But there's a stadium. Look at this, the size of the stadium for a championship stadium. Yeah. Like we're built for a Premier League club. These players should be coming in and playing for the shirt, you know. Yeah. So you'd expect every game to be some kind of fast start or passion to start with. And I think as fans, as positive or negative we are, we've got to demand that at the very least. You've got to be coming in. And I'm a little bit, like someone mentioned earlier about the recent little thing with JLS saying that he's going to go play for Cameroon. I was thinking that's a very interesting thing to say to the press. That's obviously he's got his back up a bit, hasn't it? Otherwise, why would he say it? So I'm like, does that knock him further down the pecking order?
There's no need to say it though, Jacob, though, is there?
Nah.
If you were James Saliki now, what would you be thinking if your manager's just outed you in the press?
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
I'd be more concerned. He should be more concerned about Tavernier's form as well at the moment because, you know, he pulled Tav up and Dale Fry saying he refused big money offers for them both, which personally he shouldn't be telling them that anyway. Do you know what I mean? Because straight away that's turning their heads. But Tav's form for me lately has been really poor. His distribution, his corners, his free kicks are absolutely woeful. You know what I mean? So it's players like that he needs to be out. And if he's going to out anyone, players that's been at the club a while and established. So
there's no one in that squad who's consistent at the moment, other than you could maybe argue Isaiah Jones. But even for me, he's hot and cold.
Yeah.
And when you haven't got even a couple of players playing consistently, it just rubs off on the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Just on that comment.
I can't see no wrong in Jones at all, me, whether he's hot or cold. I think I'd just get the ball to him as much as possible. I know it's a bit predictable, but I'd just get the ball to him as much as possible because, you know, he creates so much for us.
Go on, what are you going to say, Jacob?
Yeah, like I said this before we went on. I'm a fan of Tav. I'd agree that he hasn't been consistent. He hasn't. But I think there's a dynamic energy that he brings to the team through the middle. And even when he's losing the ball a bit, he's driving forward with it and there's a chance to win the second one. And I've been on the Tav train for a while now, and I love my little statistics. And if you look at his stats for the season, yes, I'd agree with guess that he hasn't been consistent. But his stats are at the top at the club. For dribbles made, shots in the box, succession pass rate in the final third, things like that mean something. That's threatening. It's on the other side of the pitch. So whilst I would agree, but you've got to also think the Tav, right wing back, centre midfield.
Surely he's got to be midfield because he was virtually on the periphery of that game on Saturday, Jacob. So surely we've got to move him more into the middle where he's going to have more of an effect on the game.
Yeah, and I think the problem that we have with that is he loves Crooks, and I do like Crooks. I mean, I was a lot more impressed at the start, but I love the way he can use 2 feet. I think anyone can see he's an intelligent player. But there's something about Tav. It's an energy. I don't know if you agree. It's a very zippy energy that he brings in the final third. He's got a brilliant first touch. He'll turn a player, and he gets the defender on the back foot immediately. And for me, when he's on form through a central position, he's probably as good as anyone as an attacking centre mid in the league.
When he's on it, Jacob.
He's one of our best players. I love him.
Well, with all these opinions, lads.
Can I just say something on them stats, or sorry, James?
Yeah,
I've seen them stats where everything was first. Most shots, most dribbles, most forward passes, most touches in the box. Jacob, I'm sorry, mate, but how many shots makes him have the most shots? Because it might have been 3 shots in 10 games because no fucker else has had a shot.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Put those stats in comparison to other teams.
Nobody else has passed. He's only first because no fucker else has passed the ball forward, and that's why them stats do my head in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but do you kick the only one out the team who's doing it?
No, definitely. Yeah, I'm one of his biggest fans. I love Tav. I absolutely, I've wanted that kid. I wish Lewis Wing was still in the team with him because I thought they complemented each other. But yeah, I've always been one of Tav's biggest fans since the first game he played for us.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, with all
stats, I don't do them. I don't do them stats. Carry on.
Well, you might not do stats, but you're going to do a prediction for tomorrow night. So I'll come to you all in turn. David, you can go first, pal. What's the score going to be against the Blades tomorrow night?
1-0 Sheffield United.
Oh, David,
pal. 1-0 Sheffield United it is. Go on, Jacob. You can go next.
Right, I'm going to be my glass half full. Warnock is going to pull a tactical masterclass off, and we're going to win 2-0.
2-0 Boro. So we've got one Boro, one Sheffield United. Guesty, coming to you next, mate.
The only thing I'm sure about tomorrow night is Warnock's going to have a go at the referee. You know my predictions, James. I'm going to go a 1-0 Boro win tomorrow.
1-0.
After all that whinging and moaning, I still can't take us to get beat at home.
Yeah, that's what I'm like.
We've gone from the extreme of Mark not saying we're going to win 8-0 to Pete Robbo saying Sheffield United, David Bertram 4-1 Sheffield United. So, yeah, there you go.
What about yours, James? You're not getting out of this and making me look the mug.
No, I fancy a draw tomorrow night. I think he'll back down the actions. I think he knows he's got to get some sort of result because we've lost 2 in a row, and I think he's got to stop the rot. And I don't think it'll be pretty. Sheffield United might be famous last words, don't have a ton of goals in them, but I think it'll be quite a cagey game, and I'm going 1 each tomorrow night, lads. So there you go. We've covered all bases. Yeah. So from Sheffield United, it's there won't be any issue with atmosphere, I don't think, on Saturday down at Humberside, as Boro will be taking the biggest following of the season so far to the K-Com. Hull City, lads, have not won since the opening day of the season, and I think it's 7 in 7 of the last 8 league games and not scored a goal, so I've set that one up. David, it's the final match before the international break. How big is it?
Are you going to say that? And the striker hasn't scored for, the striker hasn't scored for 2 years. They haven't won at home since the king was on the throne. I don't know.
Their keeper hasn't scored.
That's a definite 1-0 defeat then, isn't it?
It's big though, David. Whatever we say, it's a big match, isn't it, Saturday?
It is. I think both of the games tomorrow and Saturday are massive. And when you've got 3,500 Boro fans travelling down on Saturday, they're not going there expecting anything other than a 3-point result. So our away following strong, they're very vocal, and if they don't get the money's worth, Warnock and the players will know about it. Teams like Hull, you should be putting in performances and winning. So to go into the international break on the back of 3 points would change the whole dynamic of the season potentially. So it is massive. Yeah. And I think even tomorrow, I'm saying we'll get beat 1-0. If we can get a draw, if we can get 3 points, then brilliant. I think just 2 positive results and performances could change the tide. But I think if you struggle tomorrow and you struggle against Hull, I can see curtains coming down for Warnock, unfortunately.
We'll get on to that in a minute, pal. Yeah. Tony, talking about Hull City, they've just returned to the Championship after a 1-year sabbatical in League One. And in fairness, with everything that's going on behind the scenes, Grant McCann's done a really good job there, hasn't he?
Yeah, fair play to him. He's done really well. Because like you say, they were in free fall, which has happened to a lot of Championship clubs. Look at Sunderland. They're still struggling to get out of that division. All were fortunate enough to get back out. But after a great start, they've started to struggle, you know what I mean? So they've got to find a way to try and hang in there, to try and stay in it. But it's a perfect game for us. Like you say, Cameron's trying to phone.
Sorry, mate.
It's a game, like David's just said there, we've got to try and find some positivity from somewhere before the international break. Mm-hmm. And it's a typical place, like the Forest game, team struggling. I don't want to. I want to say I'm more confident on Saturday, put it that way, than I am tomorrow night. Even if we get beat tomorrow night, I feel there's 3 points in us at all for some reason.
Guess I'm exactly the same as you for some reason.
And Jacob, do you know, as Tony's just said there, that it's an ideal game in a way for us on Saturday at Hull? Do you not think Hull will be thinking the same way about us going to their place, thinking, wow, they're great opponents for us at the minute?
100%. 100%. I mean, you look at the Forest game, and this is going to sound like my glass is half empty. We were really poor. After that game, I said to my son as well, I was like, Harry, this isn't looking good. Even though and I am a positive fan, we weren't looking good. Spora pulled off an absolute worldie. That was, I mean, it had no right to go in, really, considering the position. Like, I mean, it's good that he scored, like, but yeah, I think we struggled in that game a bit until that goal went in. I think obviously Forest were in free fall at the time. If I was a Hull fan, I'd be looking. If I was watching the Boro games, I'd be looking, saying the amount of chances that get created. I mean, if you look at the Reading match before they scored, there was a couple of one-on-ones.
Yeah,
and this is a team without a striker. So, as a Hull fan, I'd be looking at it thinking, if we're going to beat anyone who it looks like they could have done something at the start, but they're in a bit of a predicament at the moment, it would be Boro.
Yeah, fair point. And David, probably in the ranks for Hull on Saturday, he'll be Richie Smallwood, ex-Boro man, and he'll be eager to impress as well, won't he?
He will, and it's the type of midfielder that you'd like to see in the Boro at the moment, because he's a sitter and he's a ball-winning midfielder, and that's exactly what we need. We need someone to control it. Howson, I know he's the sitter, but he's too box-to-box for me. You know, he's getting dragged all over the place. I know he is doing two people's jobs, but Richie Smallwood just does the simple things easy. You know, he just sits there, breaks up the play. You don't necessarily know he's the best player on the pitch or what. I mean, you don't really appreciate him, but if he's not there, you see gaps, and that's exactly what we're missing.
Yeah. Before we
someone like Marcy.
Yeah,
similar to Marcy.
Yeah, exactly. Guess yeah.
Who's he?
Some little Egyptian that took no shit, but he's gone.
Well,
would you reckon McNair's disciplined enough? Do you guys reckon McNair could be disciplined enough to sit as that holding midfielder, or do you think he'd like to bomb on?
I thought that's what he was when he came to the club.
When we bought him, I thought he was box to box, because he was box to box for Sunderland, wasn't he? He was like he was like number 8, but I don't know. Someone's just telling me he could be a good holding midfielder.
He never came to the club as a centre half. He started at Man United as a centre half, then moved into midfield, and then, you know, I think it's only since he came to the Boro that he's been used as a centre half.
I think he played there once or twice this season for us, hasn't he?
He's played.
I think
he had an issue. I think he had an issue under Warnock. I think he was about to leave the club, and it was Warnock who said, Woodgate who said to him, "Don't worry, son, you won't play centre half for me. You'll be playing in the midfield." Then I think after about 2 games, Woodgate had him back in the back 4. So he obviously he sees himself, you know, as a midfielder, and he's just, like you say, for me, he's filling in as centre half. And Saturday's performance just exposed all his weaknesses as a centre half for me.
Yeah.
Well, lads, before we get to the prediction for the whole game, I want you first of all to say, and I'll come to each of you again, what's an acceptable points return from these 2 games this week? Not what you actually think we will get, but what for you would be an acceptable points return from these 2 matches. So, Tony, what for you? What do we need as a bare minimum from these 2 games?
He's got to steady the ship, hasn't he? So, you know, he's got to get out of these 2 games undefeated. So a bare minimum's 2 points for me. If he comes away with 2 points, undefeated in 2, obviously, I know, like you say, it's not a win, but if he comes away with 2 points and not getting beat, you've got to look at that as a positive, haven't you?
Yeah. Okay. David?
3 points for me. I think we have to get a win in there somewhere, just to start building confidence. I can understand what Gessy's saying about staying unbeaten in the 2. Yeah, that's important, but I think getting a win is, even if it's a loss and a win, I think getting a win on the board breeds confidence, and we need to make sure we get that out, one of the 2.
On that point, David, then, would it be a problem if, say, they won against Sheffield United, then lost to Hull? Because it's the same 3 points you get either way you do it. Do you think the Hull game's a bigger game because it's the last one before the break?
Not necessarily, in my opinion, because I think if you get 3 points at Sheffield United at home tomorrow, where there's quite a few fans who are not expecting it, it's in front of your home fans, and they seem to remember that more, because not necessarily all of them go to the away matches. So I would say Sheffield United is bigger game tomorrow to get the 3 points than Hull is. That's just my perspective.
Okay. And what about yourself, Jacob?
Well, I can see people commenting 4 points, 4 points. I'd agree with Dave. I think Hull, you've got to win, and we might get away with 3 points out of the two of them, putting a good performance in against Sheffield United, but getting pipped 1-0 or something. If I walk away from the Riverside and I see a team that's together and we've been beaten by a lot better team on the day, but we've played well, like we've played well, and I can actually see something like the midfield starting to work together, for example, then we go away to Hull and we get 3 points. I'm not too displeased with that, considering the form that they're in. But if you asked me after tomorrow night when we're losing and we had another one of these, I'd be totally different.
What's your perspective, James? What would you say is the bare minimum?
I would be happy to get 4 points. I'd be happy to get 4. That would be a good week for me. But I also think 3's more than likely. I think we're more than likely to get 3 rather than 4. But 4 for me would be a good week this week, a really good week. I think we just need to get some positivity back into that squad, because I don't know about you, but I just think the players look like they're playing under a bit of a cloud at the minute. The club just seems to be under a little bit of a cloud, and I think we just need 2 really good results, and not necessarily performances. I just want results at the moment, because I think we just need to pull away from that bottom end of the table. I know it's early days, but if you're entrenched there October, November, it's a long time before you seem to get out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I've got to say, watching the post-match interview this morning and then the conference on Saturday, Warnock doesn't come across like he's under any pressure from the hierarchy, and you can usually tell that. And it's the way he comes across in his interviews. Even if he gets 2 bad results, I think a lot of fans think that's the axe. Personally, I don't.
Well, where do you stand on that? Because there's a lot of people saying on social media, and when you talk to other Boro fans, and they're saying, lose both these games this week, that's it, he's got to be gone. He's going to be out the job. Do you not think that'll happen, David?
I don't. I think that's the hope of the fans, and it makes sense because it's an international break. The timing, you can bring a new manager in and, start from scratch, but you can usually get the rumblings before it happens. And yeah, you're getting the rumblings with the fans, but there's nothing that indicates to me from hierarchy or his tone of voice. He's still talking way down the line, and I don't think Steve Gibson's trigger happy like that, especially with Warner.
Okay. So then, boys,
on a positive, like you say, it's a championship, and we've seen it before. The likes of Bristol City, coming here winning 3-1 or whatever it was when they hadn't won, and they've gone on a crazy run. That seems miles away at the moment for us, but that's all it needs. It turns on a sixpence, doesn't it? Get a good result against Sheffield United tomorrow, and it can turn like that in the championship. It's just that everything's been so poor up until this. Up until this last performance on Saturday. So that's why my glass isn't half empty or half full. It's fucking at the bottom. There's absolutely no positivity left in it. You know what I mean? But like you say, one result can change everything. And I hope it's tomorrow night.
But guess here's a question for you then. So, if we don't get the 2 results or performances over the next 2 games, would you say that's the season as a wipe-off? Because I was reading quite a lot of the comments there on the Saturday after the match, and a lot of people reckon that's the season over with. And considering you're only 12 games in, that's a massive statement, I'd say.
I think I told you last week, Dave, if we were 2 places above the bottom 3, I'm still with 10 games to go. I'm still working out how many points we need to get in the top 6. I told you that last week. No, the season's never written off in the championship, is it? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
you get the Christmas, and we've seen so many teams do it. Everybody keeps saying, look at Barnsley last season. I remember Crystal Palace being in the bottom 3 and getting promoted.
Yeah,
Reading did it as well.
It just doesn't. Things like that just don't happen on Teesside. It just don't happen. Just doesn't happen to the Boro. We're either up there flying or, we're fighting relegation. It's not very often it's mid-table mediocrity. But when it was mid-table mediocrity, the fans you're going back to the Premiership days when all we were was an established Premiership club, and that was never good enough for the Boro fans. We always wanted, why we're only finishing 10th, why we're finishing 14th, but that's happened to a lot of clubs. Stoke City had it with Pulis as well. So we all wish and hope for things different. There's lots of fans hoping for new chairman, investment coming into the club. I'm hoping we get a new manager soon, you know what I mean? But that's football, isn't it? It's absolutely class, and that's why I love doing this with you lads, because it's all different opinions.
Jacob, do you not think there might be a train of thought that goes along the lines of last season? We were bobbing around the top 6 for almost all the season. We finished 10th and it was a bit of a damp squib. We think we might be better this year, coming from the pack, not being hanging around the top 6, 7, 8 places like we were for the majority of the season. Then it being a bit of a letdown and us coming with a bit of a run. Do you think there's less pressure on us, or do you think there's always pressure being at the Boro and being in the Championship?
Yeah. I mean, well, considering the signings that we've made, considering the manager that we've got, the things that we've heard from the club, like we want a challenge for the top 6, I think there's a different element of pressure to, for example, a Millwall trying to break out of the pack. And just touching on what you said earlier, 12 games in, don't forget, that's a quarter of the season. And yes, it has happened before, but it's not a regular occurrence. And I think that if we do lose the next 2 games, for me, then the alarm bells will ring. If we lose to Sheffield United and lose to Hull, for me, the alarm bells are ringing, because you're fighting a losing battle then. And granted, it can happen. Of course it can. But you are fighting a losing battle. And Warnock actually mentioned, he was saying, we need to start getting points now. Yeah. Even with all of his comments about, I'll just do the best with what I have. Yeah. He was saying, look, we need to get some points on the board. So, I'll probably be changing my tune a little bit more to, you might need to start walking if we do lose the next 2.
Okay. Well, boys, before we leave the show tonight, give us your predictions for the game at Hull City at the weekend. David, come to you first, matey.
Well, apart from that, our old man's coming with us on Saturday, and he never sees us win away from home. I've got to. I'm like with Guesty. I'm not too confident about tomorrow night, but for some strange reason, I'm confident for Saturday. So I'm going to go 1-0 win on Saturday.
1-0 Boro. Tony.
1-0 Boro.
1-0 Boro. Jacob, is it going to be a full house, mate?
Well, it depends. If my first prediction comes right, I'd say we'd have to go and get a win. So I'm going to have to go with it now, and I'm going to have to definitely be the glass half full. If we do get a 2-0 win at Sheffield United, I'll go outrageously and say 3-0 at Hull.
Oh, jeez. 5 goals in a week.
Well, you never know. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, Timmy Leach has gone 16-0 Boro, so that knocks spots off that there, Jacob, yeah.
I think he's taking the mick out of me, that lad.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, that's all we've got time for on this week's Monday Night Show. My thanks go to David, Tony and Jacob for joining me. Thanks very much, lads.
No, pleasure.
No worries.
Nice to be well.
And thanks for everyone watching out there and contributing to the show as always. Much appreciated. Make sure you join us at the same time next week when we'll look back on those Sheffield United and Hull City games and for other reaction about what's going on at the Boro. Join us as always at 7 o'clock next Monday night. Until then, from us all at Boro Fan TV, have a good week, stay safe, and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.
Up the Boro.